What's up, everyone? Tera Roberts here with 4 for 4, and we are talking bounce back players for 2023. I'm going to split this video up into two parts: the big name bounce back players first, and then the little name sneaky bounce back players after that. And we will start off with Calvin Ridley. It has been far too long since Calvin Ridley graced us with his presence on the field. The last time we saw Ridley was in week 7 of 2021. But Ridley is officially back and now one of the primary pass catchers for Trevor Lawrence, in an offense that was 10th most in passing yards in the NFL last season. And the Jags offense is primed to make a leap and push even more volume with a full season under Doug Peterson. If Ridley returns to his 2021 form, he has legitimate wide receiver 1 upside. And at worst, he is Zay Jones, a high-end wide receiver 3. Either way, this situation plays out perfectly for a bounce-back season for Ridley. Next up, I've got 2 bounce-backs and 1. The tandem bounce back of the year has to go to Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. Andrews finished as tight end 4 overall in total points and average points per game in PPR. But for a tight end that we were drafting in the second round just after Travis Kelce, Andrews wildly underperformed and disappointed. He scored over 100 less fantasy points than his previous season and had a 4-game stretch where he didn't even reach 10 fantasy points per game. 2022 was a strange year for Lamar. He got off to literally the most epic start of any quarterback last season. I'm not exaggerating. The man averaged 34 fantasy points through the first 3 games. But after that, weeks 4 through 12 before he got injured, Jackson averaged 17.2 fantasy points per game. That is QB 15, behind guys like Tom Brady, Daniel Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo. Yes, Jimmy G averaged more points per game than Lamar Jackson over that time period. But new season, new offensive coordinator, new weapons. The Ravens offense as a whole should push more pass volume and increase the game pace. This is the perfect bounce back scenario for Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson. And my final big name bounce back is Justin Herbert. I am primed and ready for Justin Herbert to bounce back this season, and I hope you are too, because we are just 1 season removed from Justin Herbert's QB2 finish of over 5,000 yards and 38 passing touchdowns. 2022 was a rough year for Herbert. He still had the second most passing yards in the league behind only Patrick Mahomes, but he had to throw significantly more passes to get there, taking his yards per attempt down to 6.9. Not good. And his touchdowns literally took a nosedive from 38 all the way down to 25. On top of all of that, his rushing upside literally disappeared to just 147 yards and no touchdowns. It was a recipe for disaster. But there were a ton of factors that went into his disappointing season. Herbert suffered a rib injury and he opted to play through it. Fantastic, love the spirit, but you could visibly see how it affected his passes and limited his mobility. On top of all of that, Keenan Allen missed a huge chunk of the season, and Mike Williams dealt with injuries as well. Josh Palmer stepped up admirably, and Austin Eckler did Austin Eckler things, but it's tough being hurt without your top weapons. The Chargers made key additions this offseason to help mitigate a lot of those issues. They drafted Quentin Johnson, who could legitimately be wide receiver 1 for the Chargers in the near future, and gives the Chargers one of the deepest receiving cores in the league. They also hired Kellen Moore, who is looking to reshape the offense. Herbert is QB7 right now in ADP, and fantasy managers, you could be getting away with literal theft drafting Herbert at that ADP. Camp hype is typically just camp hype, but when I hear the hype around Elijah Moore's potential role in Cleveland, I cannot help but buy in. I will be 100% with you, as I always am. I was big on Elijah Moore last season. I thought he was a top candidate for a year to break out because I loved what I saw from him in his rookie year, where over a 7-game stretch wedged between 2 injuries, he averaged 17.7 fantasy points per game in PPR. He was a top 10 receiver. It's a small sample size, but he looked like a star in the making. Instead, we got literally the worst case scenario where Moore was legitimately iced out of the Jets offense. It was just a terrible marriage between Moore and the Jets coaching staff, but new faces, new places. It sounds like Elijah Moore is loving life with the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns want him to play a critical role in the offense. An offense that is shifting more towards a pass-heavy approach with a full season of Deshaun Watson ahead of them, and Moore could legitimately be his wide receiver too. My next sneaky bounce-back player, like it or not, is Cam Akers. It is officially Cam Akers' bounce back season. Yes, after literally almost being off the team, Cam Akers is primed to be the Rams' RB1 in 2023. But after some time on the bench, Akers regained his footing within the Rams offense, and weeks 13 through 18, he averaged 17.7 fantasy points in PPR and was RB5 over that time period. That stretch was very running back friendly, but it was a fantastic sign to see him perform at that level that we knew he was capable of. The Rams have verbalized their commitment to Akers, and his role as RB1, as long as they don't make any major additions, should be very solidified. Akers will have a bounce back season, and he is coming in at an excellent ADP. And finally, the New England Patriots have been in a horrific drought at receiver. Their draft evaluation is suffering, their free agent signings are underwhelming. If they can't convince DeAndre Hopkins to sign, they will likely have one of the weakest receiving cores in the entire league. And as a result, the Patriots could rely heavily on 2 tight end sets, and Mike Gesicki could be a sneaky target hog in this offense and be a strong bounce-back candidate. After 2 top 10 seasons in Miami, Gesicki saw a massive role reduction in 2022 under new head coach Mike McDaniel. But to be fair to Gesicki, that was not his fault, actually. Gesicki is just the exact opposite of the type of tight end for Mike McDaniel's system. McDaniel's system calls for a true tight end, heavy on the blocking, and Gesicki is really just a large receiver. It just wasn't the right fit for him, and he was essentially phased out of the offense. But in New England, with Hunter Henry already on board to handle more of the traditional tight end duties, Gesicki can focus on pass catching and could play a significant role in one of the worst receiving cores in the league. Maybe New England gets back to that traditional usage of 2 tight ends that served them very well in the past, and Gesicki can return to a top 10 tight end. Thank you so much for watching this video. Comment below and let me know who you think will have the biggest bounce back season of the year. Be sure to subscribe and like this video and stick around for more fantastic off-season content.